At Volunteers of America, we have been so blessed to have longtime partners who believe in us, invest in us, and trust in us. We work very hard to make sure that we nurture and cultivate and honor our partnerships and collaborations. And we have made a difference only because of those people who work with us. School teacher turned entrepreneur, Jay Martin, and his successful JuicePlus company is just one example of a long-term partnership that has worked so well because of mutual passion, dedication, and a will to collaborate for the people who are the most vulnerable. After graduating from University of Georgia, go Dogs, all right, and moving to Memphis, Jay turned a $500 investment into $10 billion business. Now, don't you want to hear from him? Yes. Founded in 1970, JuicePlus has been driven by the same goal since day one, to inspire healthy living around the world. Now, I highly recommend their Dutch chocolate shake with a banana in the morning. That's the extent of my cooking skills, but Jay, I love it. Now, located in a suburb of Memphis, JuicePlus grew from a small direct sales business into a multi-million-dollar company operating in more than 20 countries, and now stands at the forefront of the health and wellness business. With their success, JuicePlus and Jay Martin have been very generous in supporting 4 nonprofits, including Volunteers of America. Now, we are grateful, we are appreciative, and we are blessed, so very blessed, to continue this partnership to improve the lives of people who are often in a desperate need of a hand up. Now, somehow, in all the things that Jay has done, he found the time to write a book, which is so funny and down to earth and good advice. His book was called I Might Have Told You, and all the proceeds go to charity. Now, my favorite part of his book was a little chapter called Find a Buddy. Jay is asked to speak all over the world, all the time, and people always ask him personal and professional advice. And he always says to them, find a buddy. Now, I want you to know that Volunteers of America has found a buddy in Jay Martin. Please join me in giving not a warm, but a hot, sizzling welcome to Jay Martin.
Ruby, you will not have to get me off the stage. They'll just walk out. I had a journalism professor at the University of Georgia that really believed in brevity, and he really took it about as far as anybody I've ever seen, because when he wanted to make a real salient point, he would come into the class, make the point, and dismiss the class. Ruby didn't share with you that I spent 7 years in undergraduate study, and that's the only 3 things I remember about my college education. So I'm going to share 3 things with you today. Obviously, I'm going to do it briefly. Share 3 things with you today and hope you'll remember them. The first one is I'm going to have to change what I was going to do. The first point I was going to make was that I was not going to say anything about politics. I just couldn't help myself. I absolutely could not help myself. I'm even thinking now of another organization that we may put together called Promise Breakers, because it's just too good to be true, or it isn't true, let's hope. But I thought about it, so I thought about maybe if I were somehow an advisor to the two presidential candidates who are running for President of the United States now. What advice would little old me give them? Well, to Hillary Clinton, Mrs. Clinton, I would say, read my lips. Just don't say anything else. Let him talk. Just let him talk. And to the Donald, I would say, Donald, you're behind and you need something just, I don't know, you need a game changer. And I believe this would be it. So I've told Hillary now to zip it. I'm going to tell Donald to clip it. That would be to clip his entire larynx and vocal cords out. Find a ventriloquist and see if we can do a little better. So I had to break my promise. I knew when I landed in Chicago I had to say something about politics. So here I am. The second thing I wanted to leave with you that I think all of you are very much aware of this. It's every problem creates an opportunity. And I know this is a religious organization, and I guess my text for this comes from the Word of God. That is, if you think God was a Jewish comedian that smoked a cigar named George Burns. And it was in the movie Oh God, one of my favorite all-time movies. And there was a great scene in that movie. He revealed himself to a grocery store clerk who was John Denver. And John Denver had a little girl. And the little girl would ask questions of God from time to time. And in this particular scene, the little girl asked him, he said, "Now you're God." "Yes, I'm God," he said. And he said, "Tell me something, God." He said, "Why is life so unfair? Why do some people seem to have everything and some people seem to have nothing? Some people have health and some people are sick. Some people are wealthy, some people are poor. Why, if you are God, why is life so unfair?" And George Burns took a draw off his cigar and said, "Well," he said, "when I made this world," he said, "I actually thought I did a pretty good job." He said, "I even gave myself a day off." And he said, "But there was a couple things I couldn't do. I couldn't even do. I couldn't make a front without a back. I couldn't make a good without a bad. I couldn't make an up without a down. I just couldn't do it." So I thought, what if that scene had changed and someone else had been the screenwriter and they'd have phrased that a different way? And the little girl would have asked George Burns, "God, tell me something. You've been credited with so many things, and you've done so many things. Of all the things that you have done, what are you the most proud of? What are you the most proud of?" And George Burns would have said it another way. "I couldn't make a bottom without a top. I couldn't make a back without a front. I couldn't make a bad without a good. I couldn't make a problem without a solution. I couldn't do it." And when we look back, at certainly my day, which has been a while, I actually met Harry Truman when he was president, if that tells you anything. I wasn't that old, but I do remember it. The issue of my day growing up, I grew up in a little town of 500 people in western North Carolina. My father was a school teacher, school principal actually. He was principal of all 12 grades. He taught 3 classes and coached 2 sports. Never made $10,000 in his life. But our problem, or the problem of the day, was segregation. And I will never forget my first experience with segregation. A friend of mine's father took us to Sears and Roebuck in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and spanked his son for drinking from a colored water fountain. And threatened to tell my daddy if I did it. Well, little did I know that my daddy would have probably pinned a medal on me. And then I remember one time that some gentlemen from our town, some black gentlemen from our town, came in to see my father and asked if they could use the ball ground. And of course, my daddy was a frugal person, and he said, sure, but you got to pay for the lights. And the lights were $3. We didn't have a very bright baseball field. So the games began, and my father got a call. He got a death threat because he had allowed these people to play on our high school baseball field. Incredible. I'll never forget, I didn't know what the call was about, really. And I remember my daddy got up, put his hat on, and my mother asked him where he was going. He said, I'm going to the ball game. Never missed another game. I remember walking to school. The home for the principal, the reason he could live on $10,000 was like a parsonage. And we walked from my house to school, and there would be a bus that would come by every, couple days. And I would wave at the bus, and they would wave at me, and it was black children. They'd been bused 64 miles. 64 miles to school. Obviously, we had some problems. But you know where one of the solutions came that kind of, I wouldn't say tipped it over, but certainly played a big role? Of all the places you could imagine, it came from University of Alabama. I don't like them any more now than I did then because they beat Georgia every time we play. Bear Bryant, an old country boy from Arkansas, was the coach at Alabama. And integration was just starting. And Bear Bryant flew out to California, met with the coach at Southern Cal, gave him $100,000 to come to Birmingham and beat Alabama. He didn't tell him to come beat Alabama, but he knew they were going to beat Alabama. He wanted to show people in Alabama that if they were going to ever be a national championship again, they had to change the color of their team. When I went to school at the University of Georgia, there was not one single black player in any sport in the Southeastern Conference, or for that matter, the Atlantic Coast Conference. Not one single black player. They beat Alabama 42-13, I think, and he walked a fullback by the name of Sam Bam Cunningham into the Big Elephant Club. That's the big donors at Alabama. And said, boys, this is a football player. He'd scored 4 touchdowns. And he let Sam Bam speak, and then when he left, he said, guys, it's real simple. We'll never win again. Never a championship again if we don't do it. 4 years later, he won a national championship with a predominantly black team. So where there seems to be no light, there is light. No matter how bad it looks, it can be better. Well, women's rights was another one. I got involved in women's rights a little bit at the University of Georgia. We didn't go very deep into the things that we really, felt passionate about, or should have felt passionate about. But we did take over the student union building to protest the fact that women couldn't stay out all night. And we won. And let me tell you, that was the biggest mistake anybody ever made, I can guarantee you that. But what about women? A bunch of you flew in here today. Do you realize during that time that women could not weigh more than 106 pounds and be an airline stewardess? 106. They couldn't work beyond their 30th birthday. They could not marry or have children. It's amazing. But once again, the tide turned. My father, when he retired from school, was put on the ticket just to have somebody's name on the ticket for the state legislature. If you hadn't already figured it out, he was a Democrat. And he was the only Democrat ever elected from our county. He goes to North Carolina, he goes to Raleigh, North Carolina at age 72 or something like that to be in the legislature. But I remember the governor called him, Governor Jim Hunt called him and said, Ab was his name, he said, I got two problems. Liquor by the drink was a problem. Women's rights is a problem. And he said, neither one of them are going to be that popular in your county. Will you support me? And my daddy said, well, I'll definitely support you, but I would want to ask out on one thing. My county is Yadkin, and it's only second from the end. If liquor by the drink is already passed, I'll be in the bathroom. But he said, I want to stand up and be heard for women's rights. He didn't get death threats. He got eternal threats. I remember a letter coming from a big preacher in our county saying that if my father voted for this, they'll soon be preaching, and they'll soon be deacons, and they'll soon be this, and you, sir, will be judged in the final hour. My daddy sent him a little note, said, great. So there are problems. Today, there are problems. North Carolina thinks the biggest problem now is transgender bathrooms. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable that they would spend all that time on that. And Tennessee's worse. That's where I live now. The biggest issue in the Tennessee legislature was whether you could carry a gun into a bar if you didn't drink. Figure that one out. You can now in Tennessee, of course, you can carry them to school now. Can you carry them in Tennessee into a bar as long as you don't drink? And it passed. And it passed. So we feel like that our cause might be just a little better than theirs. We believe that the only answer to health care is that people have got to take control of their own health. We can blame doctors, we can blame hospitals, we can blame insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, all you want to do. We spend 5.5 times more than the other 17 industrialized nations on the average. And we rank dead last in terms of service provided. And the other one, of course, is financial security. The middle class in this country is shrinking like a salted snail. Y'all must have walked into a bar with a gun. Are snails only indigenous to Memphis, Tennessee? Is there a snail in the house anywhere? Put a little salt on that snail and see how fast it shrinks. That is what is happening. Please believe me, that is what is happening. But back to George Burns. I got to get out of this somehow. Got to get out of this. So we try to give people affordable options to turn the corner as far as taking care of their own health. We don't sell anything that costs more than a cup of Starbucks. Of course, I don't believe anybody sells anything that doesn't cost more than a cup of Starbucks. And the same with our business. We try to offer people a big gap between reward and risk, as in no risk, and the sky's the limit. So, but yours overshadows us, overshadows everybody's. George Burns would say, I couldn't stop suffering, but I did make comfort. I couldn't stop despair, but I could make hope. That's what you have, and that's why we are so proud as our company, on behalf of all of us, to be your buddy. You know, a good I do speak all over the world, and I see people in our business by the thousands, and I say, some people are successful and some people are waiting to see if they're going to be successful. What's the difference? The ones that are successful have a buddy. The ones that don't are trying to do it alone. You cannot do what you're trying to do. We cannot do what we're trying to do alone. A good preacher he's busted that. Have you busted that vest? Talk to me about JuicePlus when you finish. We'll A good preacher needs a good amener. Right? If you see a Mormon missionary going down the street by himself, something bad's happened to his buddy. It's a 2,000-year-old principle going out in pairs. A full moon is 9 times brighter than a half moon. You know, there is the power of 2 or more to influence a third is infinitely more than the power of 1 to influence a second. So we're proud to be your buddy, and we're real proud to have you to be our buddy. So thank you very much.